In a previous video, I showed you some basics of Clarity workflows. In this one, I'm going to show you some more complex stuff that you can do with workflows. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to look at the SIR created notification workflow. This workflow is associated with the Service Enhancement Request module, and it is initiated whenever a new SIR is created, as the name implies. And it sends notifications to all the appropriate people and does a number of updates to the new SIR record that was just created. So if I drill into this, as you saw in the previous video, you've got the normal tabs across the top. This is the properties page. And for purposes of this, I'm going to set this to draft so that I can show you not only how complex workflows work, but also can show you how to update them at the same time. Now, as mentioned in the other video, I can't set that to draft if there are initiated instances of this workflow or process. But I've already gone in and removed them all, so now I can set it to draft and click Save. So if I look first, the first place to go really when you're delving into a process you haven't looked at before is to go to the process flow diagram. So as you can see, this is a bit more complex than the simple one that we looked at in the previous video. There are a number of steps and there are a number of possible paths that the workflow can follow. So this diagram shows you right away that this step is initiated after the start, then this one, and this one can go in 4 different directions. So basically the reason for this is that the SIR module assumes that work is being done by an outside supplier. There are 3 of them that account for the majority of the updates that we do: Cognizant, Infosys, and Accenture. But occasionally we have an application that needs updated by someone other than one of those 3, so that goes to a non-standard supplier. In any of those cases, the process comes back together and this step is obsolete. It used to be something we did there. We decided not to do it. So rather than rewrite the whole workflow, I simply blanked out the actions on that step. Then we go to the lock fields and finish. So the very first thing that it does is to populate the created by field. Then it populates fields on the SIR record based on the application that was selected for updating. So if you're not familiar with the SIR module, service enhancement requests are requests for an update to a specific application. So when you create a new record in Clarity, you create it based on a specific application. The applications are resident in Clarity in the application module. So this process goes and looks up the application that was selected for this enhancement request, gets data from that application record, and populates the SIR record, and then sends notification. So the first step here, the start step, generally I don't do anything in the start step, but the next step is indicated down here at the bottom. Go to populate created by field. So if I, whoops, wrong. If I navigate to that step, then I can see that it does a single action. It does populate fields, and then it has a number of choices. So let me look really quickly first at this action. You can have multiple actions in a process step. The actions are executed in the order that they're listed. So you can click reorder to change the sequence of those actions. And there are different types of actions that you can have. If I click new here, I can see that I can have a manual action, a system action, run a job, run a custom script, or do a sub-process. The manual action is a little bit of a misnomer. It sends an action item to a particular person, a Clarity user, or a group of users, or a given role. So you could send an action to everybody whose primary role is business analyst. A system action is a predefined action that can be done on an object, in this case a SIR object. So system actions, you don't have a lot of leeway. There is a list of them. We looked at them in the previous video. You can set a field to a value, you can lock fields, you can unlock fields, but you don't have a lot of ability to customize. Running a job is exactly what it indicates. Anything listed under the reports and jobs as a job, you can actually initiate that job from within a process. And similarly, you can launch another process from a process. This one that we're looking at now is actually a custom script. Custom scripts are rather ugly. They have to be written in JavaScript, and JavaScript is not the friendliest language to work in. So delving into the specifics of this JavaScript is well beyond the scope of this video, but briefly, if you look down through this, what it's doing is updating this table in the database, which is the table that contains the custom SIR object, and it's actually setting individual fields equal to various values based on these SQL queries that are built into the JavaScript. CA will tell you that that's forbidden, that you're not allowed to do direct database updates with SQL code. However, when I was trying to figure out how to make the SIR module work, I went to CA support and they provided me with a solution. So since they gave it to me, I'm using it and it works very well. I've used it in a number of cases, and it's very, very handy to be able to put in a JavaScript that updates specific database fields. So it updates the ASMs, PRID, the bundle area, the service provider. All of these are based on the application that was selected. So that's about all I'm going to say about this script at the moment. Actually, I should say one other thing. There is... Oh, no, it's in another script. So that's all I'm going to say about that one. So let me back up from there. The main thing I want to look at on this step is the multiple exit points. So down at the bottom, we indicate where to go next. And as I pointed out in the process flow diagram, there are 4 possibilities. And they're based upon these conditions. You can add a new condition, you can edit the existing one, and it will go through these in order until it finds one that's true. So at the bottom I have one that says the condition is 1 equals 1, which will always be true. So if none of the previous ones are true, then it defaults to non-standard supply. And these conditions are simply looking at the service provider that is associated with this SIR and comparing it to Infosys, Accenture, and Cognizant, and then branching accordingly. The thing to bear in mind here, this is fairly straightforward, although when you go into this, it looks like a Clarity Power Filter. So if you're not familiar with Clarity Power Filters, this can be a bit daunting. But if you are, this works very much the same way. You pick your object, you pick your fields, you build an expression, you can evaluate the expression to make sure it's correct, and then you just say, yep, save and return, that's what I want. The other thing to note here is this post condition. So the split type, when you have multiple choices here, is a decision point. It's an exclusive OR. So this one, or this one, or this one, or this one. Exclusive, meaning only one of these is going to be true. There are a couple of different split types. A parallel split means that this step in the workflow is going to initiate multiple subsequent steps. Here, with an exclusive OR, it's only going to initiate one of these choices. But if I made it a parallel split, the workflow would process this step, then it would process all 4 of these instead of just one of them. So most of the time, the workflows that I've built have been only using decision point, exclusive OR split types. If I now go back to my steps, if I look at the notify step, and this one is notifying Cognizant, is fairly straightforward. It does its thing and then it goes to the unused step, which does nothing except move on. But the crux here is in the notify custom script. So this is where I wanted to say a little bit more. The notification gel script includes an email notification. So if I can find it down here, I have a SQL query, I have another SQL query, and right here I've got a gel email. I don't expect anyone watching this video to want to write one of these from scratch. However, if you need to maintain it, one of the most common things to do in the SIR module and the EFR module, which is almost identical, is to modify who the email messages go to. JavaScripting has a very minimal email capability. There's no capability for a carbon copy line or a blind carbon copy. If the to list has duplicates in it, it fails. There are a number of quirks about this that the users are pretty familiar with. But for our purposes, if I wanted to modify this, for example, the to line here, I have hard-coded my own address into this so that I always get notifications so that I can monitor and make sure the module is working correctly and that people don't make dumb mistakes, which they still do after 4 years of using this. But if I wanted to modify this, this is the area that specifies who this is going to. And in fact, Matthew Forrester has not worked at AstraZeneca for quite some time, so it really doesn't belong here. So I really should remove him and just hit backspace there. I got to make sure that my semicolon is still there to separate the email recipients and that the $sign didn't get messed up, and now that looks good. So at some point someone should probably remove my name since I won't be around much longer at AZ. So for now I'm simply going to remove Matt and save this. One little quirk, you can actually go in and modify a custom script without putting the workflow in draft mode, which is rather odd. When you do that, it changes it to some other status. It's not on hold, but it's pending or something. But then you can go in and validate and activate the workflow. So you actually don't have to go delete existing instances of this process in order to change a custom script. So you can do that. So having hit save, I can validate. It will say the custom script has been validated and has no errors. It often says that even when there are errors. So be careful of that. But now I can save and return. So the last thing that I want to show you is the point where these multiple paths tie back together. So this unused step here has no actions. It doesn't do anything. But it is the point at which this thing comes back together. And the join type here, the precondition, is what's significant. Wherever the step is that these multiple paths come back together, you need to make sure you set the preconditions join type to a merge. So this is the result of an exclusive OR, and you're merging those paths back together. If you leave this as anything else after doing a exclusive OR on the split type, you're going to get an error and the process won't validate. So be careful of that. And other than that, I think you're good. Once you've made changes, then you can come back here. It's still in draft mode. You can validate and activate. And now we're back live. So now you know about complex processes in Clarity, which means you rock.